What if I told you that you could see the words people aren't actually saying, just by noticing a tiny little shift in their eyes? Well, get ready, because today we are unlocking a genuine psychological superpower.
Come on, you know that feeling, right? That weird vibe in the air when something just feels off. You've probably brushed it off, told yourself it's just a gut feeling, or maybe you're being a little paranoid. But what if it's something more? What if your brain is picking up on real, actual signals that most people miss entirely?
Well, here's the thing. It's not magic and it's not a random hunch. It is absolutely a skill. And the best part, it's a skill that you can learn. It's the ability to read all that information that's flying around between the words. And it actually has a name.
And this, right here, is the key to the whole thing. High interpersonal sensitivity. See, most people just listen to what someone says. But the smartest people in the room, the real observers, they notice why it's being said that way. They're tuned into those little micro behaviors, those tiny hesitations in someone's voice to figure out what is really going on in their head.
So how do we start building this skill? Where do we even begin? Well, the very first step, the foundation of it all, is understanding that people basically fall into two camps when it comes to how they process information. It all boils down to whether they're an instant reactor or a deep thinker.
So let's break this down. On one side, you've got your instant reactor. These are the people who speak first and think later. They just don't have a filter, you know? Their impulse control is pretty weak, which means their true feelings and intentions tend to just spill right out. But then, on the other side, you've got the deep thinker. These are the quiet ones, the observers. They pause, they process, and they use that higher-level thinking to really choose their words carefully. Figuring out which type you're dealing with, that's your starting point. That's your baseline.
Okay, so once you've established that baseline, once you know if you're talking to a reactor or a thinker, now the fun part begins. Now you can start looking for the specific tells. Think of these as little glitches in the matrix, the signals that show you what's really happening under the surface.
In the very first place you should always look, the eyes. I mean, we've all heard they're the windows to the soul, right? But we're not just talking about someone looking around the room. No. We're looking for a very, very specific type of eye movement that happens when they're talking to you.
So here's why it happens. When someone's hiding something, holding a steady gaze becomes incredibly difficult. Their brain is literally at war with itself. They are wrestling with the mental discomfort of their own lie. And that internal fight, that conflict, it shows up as an inability to lock eyes with you. It's a powerful signal because it's completely involuntary. All right, let's move on to our second sign. Now this one's a little tricky, so pay close attention. It's the pause. You might think a long pause is a dead giveaway for a lie, but it's not that simple. In fact, it can mean the exact opposite, and this is where knowing your baseline, reactor versus thinker, is absolutely crucial.
Let's go back to our deep thinker, or a deep processor. They will often pause and look away. But here's the difference. They aren't doing it because they're uncomfortable. They're doing it to access different parts of their brain. They're connecting complex thoughts and patterns. So in this case, a pause isn't a sign of a lie. It's actually a sign of some serious high-level thinking going on.
Now we've looked at the eyes, we've looked at pauses, but there is one signal that honestly stands head and shoulders above all the rest. It is the ultimate indicator of someone's internal state, their hidden strength, and their real level of control. And that, my friends, is poise.
So what do I even mean by poise? Really, it's just another way of saying emotional regulation. And let me tell you, how a person manages their emotions, especially when things get heated, reveals just about everything you could ever want to know about them.
Just ask yourself this next time you're in a tense situation. Picture it, a crisis at work, a heated family argument, any moment where the pressure is on. Everyone's starting to panic, voices are getting louder, but there's one person who isn't. Who is that person?
That's the person you need to watch. Their calmness isn't them being detached or not caring. It is a massive sign of high self-regulation. It means they've mastered their own internal state, and more often than not, it means they're in control of not just themselves, but the whole situation.
So let's recap. We've covered the foundation, reactor versus thinker. We've covered the telltale signs like gaze and pauses. And we've covered the ultimate tell, poise. So now what? How do you actually put all this together and turn it into a real, practical superpower?
Well, it really just comes down to a simple three-step mental checklist. First, what's their pace? Figure out that baseline. Are they a reactor or a thinker? Second, watch their gaze. Is it steady or is it darting around? Is it a look of discomfort or deep thought? And finally, third, gauge their call.
How do they react when the heat is on? That's it. That is your new toolkit for reading pretty much anyone.
You've basically just been handed the key to decode this hidden frequency of the human mind. You're now equipped to see past the surface, to understand what's really going on inside people's heads. So the question is no longer if you can hear these silent signals, it's what will you choose to listen for?